Hello and welcome to Chicago Reacts. My name is Lauren.
I'm Jordan.
And this is actually going to be a super fun Americans Learn video. We're doing a Not Just Bikes today. It's been a while since I've reacted to Not Just Bikes, and you've never seen any of their videos, right?
No, but I love already the topics that they're seemingly covering.
Oh,
so
no,
I'm
it's
excited.
great. I love this channel. It's just been a while since I've done it. Someone commented on one of the videos, and I was like, oh yeah, this is a channel that I haven't done in a while. So that was you. Thanks for reminding me to do more Not Just Bikes content. Before we do get into it, I do want to give a big shout out to a bunch of our channel members. We have a couple of Dibs members. So thank you so much to Dragon Eye, thanks to Pterodactylus, and thanks to Joe Fravel. Those are our Dibs members. If you are a Dibs member, basically that means that you can suggest any video for any of the reactors, and we will do it as soon as I see the comment, essentially. Sometimes it does take me a minute to see the comment, but as soon as I see the comment, I'll do that video, or Kit will do the video, or I'll call Jordan frantically and be like, Jordan, we need to do a video. Basically, it just means that you've got a lot more free reign in what we watch, and that will be fully your choice. And the video will come out quickly. So thank you. You can also become a member at the Red Line Rider, which is $2 a month, or the Chicago Dog, which is $5 a month. And you know, you can get some shout outs. You can get, again, access to certain polls. You can get access to early videos. And occasionally, again, your comments might result in a video that you suggest a little bit sooner. So lots of little perks for being a member. But yeah, this video is how bankrupt American cities stay alive.
And this interests me a lot because I come from Buffalo, New York, and if you know, you know. Let us know in the comments what you know.
Please do. I don't know. So
Ooh, we got a story.
I've never been to Buffalo. I had a fake aunt who lived in Buffalo.
Like a mom's friend.
Yeah, well, okay, technically she was the mother of my mom's best friend.
Oh, okay.
So like she was like a great aunt, but
yeah,
it's like, and like she was good friends with my grandmother, and like,
oh, that's cute.
Like they were Uncle Ron and Aunt Nancy.
She was family.
They was family. It's like, and then I remember being so shook when I found out that we weren't related. I was like, wait, she's not my aunt. She is my aunt. So anyway, let us begin.
This is the fourth video in my Strongtown series. You probably want to watch at least the last two videos to properly understand this one. When some people see the growth Ponzi scheme graph,
I mean, should we do that?
Building car-dependent sprawl since
I mean, we could.
Why are the suburbs still here? Shouldn't they all
we'll go backwards
by now? And it's a completely reasonable question. Of course, there have been cities in the U.S. that have gone bankrupt. Detroit, Michigan is the example most people think of.
I can't have shit in Detroit.
Such as Vallejo, California, or Jefferson County, Alabama. And Washington Park, Illinois, and Moffat, Oklahoma have declared bankruptcy twice.
Oh.
But before you jump on any of these particular examples, you should know that only 27 states even allow municipalities to declare bankruptcy, and of those, 15 have special conditions or limitations. So bankruptcies are not telling the whole story. Nevertheless, most car-dependent places are still here, so why is this? Before we get into the answer to that question, let's talk about how American cities used to be built.
With like logic and
it would start as a collection of shacks along a road or railroad like this
actual function.
A small number of people here would make some bets on the future and build their houses and shops nearby.
Or if they were Chicago, they're gonna build it on a swamp and be like, this is a good idea.
I'm newer to Chicago, like we just said, and I just found out that this place is built on a swamp.
Oh, did you find out that it burned down twice?
Yeah, I knew about that. Yeah, I knew about that. That was funny because I mean, like that's something that you learn about, like you end up learning about in our history classes. Being from Buffalo for some strange reason.
Same regional history. Chicago fire. Like you hear about. We heard about one of them. I didn't know about the other one.
Yeah,
I only knew about one of them.
I mean, that's why the alleys exist, which are great for alley parties, but. I guess it's so they're not close enough to burn. I don't know what the function the alleys serve.
I mean, they certainly help with keeping garbage off of the street.
That
cough, cough, New York.
That yeah.
Look, Chicago, it's
much cleaner.
It's a much cleaner city than New York, and the alleys really, really help with that, with keeping the garbage off of the streets and like out from behind the buildings. Like there's a place for the
cans,
for the garbage,
all of it.
And like, I don't know, no, but Chicago is funny. It's just because it reminds me of that scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where the guy's like, I built this. Everyone told me I was mad to build the castle in a swamp, but I built it anyway, and it sank into the swamp. And then I built it a second time, and that one sank into the swamp. The third one burned down, fell over, and then sank into the swamp. But the fourth one stayed up, and that's like what happened to Chicago. Like it sank into the swamp. That's why there's like a second. Like that's one of the reasons it's called Second City.
Yeah.
But like, you know, there are still lots of places in Chicago where you can go and it's like, it's underground because it used to be
the tourist.
It used to be the street level, but now it's underground because it sank.
It's my second time living somewhere like that because Seattle has a whole underground.
Oh, fun.
Also, fun facts about Seattle, where it starts in Pioneer Square, apparently was a huge gay hub back then. So if you think that it's progressive for trans rights and, you know, LGBTQIA rights, period, it was all the way back then. It was like gay cowboy central. And trans woman central.
I feel like a lot of cowboys were
most likely, yes.
Very. I feel like Brokeback Mountain was like, it was actually the norm, not except for the fact that they were two white men. Like that was the weird part about Brokeback Mountain. Like, you know. Like that was the weirdest part. Like the most abnormal part of Brokeback Mountain was that they were white. Like that was just par for the course. Anyway, that has nothing to do with what we are meant to be talking about. So
enjoy.
Back on track.
Yeah.
Many of these attempts may have failed, but others were successful too, like this one. So the shacks became more permanent structures, and they could now afford to build some basic road and water infrastructure. As more time passed, the buildings became made of stone and granite. There was a permanence to it. A proper sewage system was built and the roads were upgraded. This would attract more people and the city would gradually grow outwards. Most importantly, as this place grew, it would build the wealth needed to sustain it. A place like this is never finished. Some parts will succeed and build up, others will fail and change their land use. But in post-World War II America, this approach changed completely. Instead of incrementally building upon the places they already had, American cities started building brand new places to a completed state in new neighborhoods on the edge of town, and left their existing places to rot away. Remember this photo from earlier? It's Front Street in Brainerd, Minnesota, 1871. In 1905, it looked like this. And this is what it looks like today.
Ugh.
Because as pro-suburbanization policies came into place, it became cheaper and easier to build new buildings on the edge of town rather than to improve the places that already existed. People used to be so proud of this place that they had built that they put it on postcards. Nobody is making a postcard of this place.
No.
Incidentally, this is something that really bothers me when Americans claim they can't be like European cities because their cities were built for the car. This street wasn't built for the car. It was bulldozed for the car. It didn't have to be this way.
Yeah.
But it's true that American suburbia was built to be car dependent. You need an automobile to do just about anything.
I have watched one of his videos about that.
These places were built and funded compared to anything that had ever been built before. This infrastructure was not built using existing wealth. Instead, in order to accelerate growth, federal and state funds were used to build these places, paid for by government bonds.
Chicagoans raised their share of the $92 million cost by a bond issue. Interest and retirement to be paid for by future revenue.
Borrowing money to finance expansion is traditional with Americans. The time and money saved more than repays your investment. If you wait to pay as you go, you may not go at all.
Now, you could argue that debt in itself...
Do it on credit.
Right.
As long as that debt can be repaid. But as we've discussed in
I was trying to see if I could tell where that was.
Sprawling car-dependent places cannot sustain themselves. The amount of tax revenue collected is not sufficient to cover the replacement cost of the infrastructure.
Oh, that explains why the roads suck so bad all the time forever. Oh my God, there's so much construction on Clark Street right now. Did you take Clark or did you like...
No, I didn't.
Don't take Clark.
I also was not paying attention. I was in my...
Clark Street sucks right now. There's so much construction happening.
That might be why. That might have been... There was a reroute. So that's interesting. Now, and that's what's crazy about that is this is why I personally am passionate. Lauren did not know this until we decided that this is what we were doing, but I am super passionate about these things, and specifically the subject of suburbs and how much they were a waste of time. And honestly, they have to deal with what we call like white flight from cities when like there was abolition of slavery and the movement of immigrants into cities. And that was like how they like literally spread a lot of propaganda to scare people out of it to move into those cities before people actually had, believe it or not, you know, for those of us who want to like don't want to believe that or believe that, people were really excited to live with people from different cultures and things, and they spread a lot of misinformation because they were going to lose out on money from these suburbs they were building.
Yep, sounds right. Sounds about right.
So legitimately, there was a bunch of propaganda push to make people afraid, which we still utilize, right? You hear about Chicago, and I like walk around,
God,
like,
right?
I'm like, I'm fine.
It's like, look, there was more, like, there's violence here, but there was just as much in the suburb of Baltimore where I grew up. Like, it's like, I mean, it's not any worse. Look, and people are like, Chicago's so dangerous. Chicago's not even on the list of top 10 most dangerous cities in America.
Yeah, not at all.
It's
not at all.
You're good.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as Memphis. It's not as bad as Detroit. It's not as bad as Baltimore. Like, it's like people, yeah.
It's so
propaganda is still going strong.
Yeah, it's still running in where we are today.
All the guns. It's like
the guns.
There are lots of guns. Talk about people like gun violence in Chicago specifically.
Right, like
people keep bringing up. It's like if you look at the actual stats for it, though, it is not nearly as bad as a lot of other places.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway.
The roads,
don't believe everything
wires,
you hear,
water
basically.
Pipes and wastewater systems are spread out over a huge area, while servicing very few people who actually pay for it. This creates an illusion of wealth. These cities and suburbs look wealthy because of their new infrastructure, but in the long term, they're financially insolvent. But the effects of this are not seen until that infrastructure is due to be replaced, which only starts to happen after about 25 years. When these infrastructure maintenance bills come due, the city needs to find a way to pay for them, and if the city is not growing, they can't just sweep the problem under the rug. The first reaction of many people is to just increase tax revenues. But this shows a lack of understanding of the scale of the problem. Strong Towns has several examples from actual real-world cities and towns. Tampa, Florida, for example, needs to pay $3.2 billion to repair its water systems, requiring an 8 times increase in spending. Fun fact, Tampa already pays more in debt payments on water infrastructure than it spends on maintaining water infrastructure.
There was like an issue with that in Jackson too recently, where there was some runoff because again, it was of course a plant was pumping poison into the water and people have died. And they really need a full revamp of the system, which would cost several $1 billion, or like at least $1 billion, I think. But it would take a while. But they're like, it's cost too much. We're not going to do it here. Have some water filters is what the company did.
Wow.
And it's like I think this was Jackson. And it was like, and people are just like, I'm like, people are dying. People are dying. And you're not going to like redo the water that's poisoned because you poisoned the water.
I think Flint is still
effed too.
They've been like overshadowed by other things going on, but I'm pretty sure Flint's water is.
Flint water is still messed up.
Yeah,
it's still messed.
It's
just like these are American citizens, and we can't, fix their key right to water. It's like that is a human right. It's a basic human right to have water, and we can't.
Yeah.
It costs too much money, but we can send billions and billions of dollars to, Ukraine or something, but we can't like help fix the water in Flint or Jackson or lots of places in like North Carolina.
Put your mask on first, America. Put your mask on first, because here's the thing: is that if we want to be purveyors of truth and justice and liberty, like we say we are, which I think we can be, like we really got to do some cleaning up at home here, because otherwise we won't survive to help do that. And a lot of the because we have made a lot of progress for society, as many problems as we have, and I think that like if we continue down this path, we won't exist, and we won't exist to be those, you know, those people who push human rights forward, because we have pushed human rights forward, even with all of our crazy stuff that goes on.
Well, it's also like people are going to be like, see it for hypocrisy, and then why would you listen to a hypocrite? And it's like a whole thing.
An extreme case is the small town of Bankrupt, Minnesota, which was at the end of life of its wastewater system. But because this town was made up of sprawling, low-productivity, car-centric infrastructure, the wastewater system was sprawling and wasteful as well. This replacement cost was $27,000 per family, which was the median household income in the town. You can't just tax people their entire yearly income. Of course, in any sane country, a small, low-density town wouldn't have a wastewater system. Each home would have its own septic tank, maintained by the household. But this is the problem with the American mentality around car-dependent sprawl. Everybody expects urban services with near-rural densities. Municipal water and sewage systems, buried electrical cables, traffic lights, garbage collection, fully paved multi-lane arterial roads to every neighborhood, but they're not willing to actually pay for it. The American dream never said nothing about maintaining your own septic tank. So an American town placed in this situation takes money from federal and state governments and rebuilds the wastewater system. Here's another small town in Minnesota that had the same problem, and their bailout package looked like this. This single wastewater project amounted to 37 times the amount raised annually from property taxes. You may think that talking about cities this way in terms of their finances is crude or excessively neoliberal. After all, cities are much more than their balance sheet, and not everything in a city needs to turn a profit. But ultimately, in order to provide a high quality of life in your town or city, you need to have the money to actually pay for services. There are regular articles in the US about cities closing libraries, turning off streetlights overnight, or deferring road maintenance so much that their roads become worse than Belgium's.
Random dig at Belgium.
Solvent.
I've heard that before.
Cities are somewhat insulated from this problem because there are legal debt limits for many cities in Canada. For example, in Ontario, annual debt repayments cannot exceed 25% of a city's revenue. Though keep in mind that there's no such limit on provincial debt, and ultimately the province may be paying for a lot of that new infrastructure. Now, as we've discussed in previous videos, a growing city can just build more developments on the edge of town. This provides a quick influx of new tax revenue, and this can be used to pay for the previous generation of infrastructure liabilities. Again, this isn't built on the wealth of places that already exist. It's building new places in the suburbs, even as existing inner ring suburbs may be falling into disrepair. To create this growth, the city needs to build out new infrastructure, and that is usually paid for with a mix of funds from federal and state governments, as well as debt. This chart shows the increase in U.S. public sector debt since the 1950s, and you can see where the first and second generation of suburban infrastructure liabilities comes due. Now, when you plot this public sector debt against U.S. GDP, you might argue that the levels of debt seem proportional. I'm not going to get into that. But this graph is hiding something.
That's too much math.
Because while local governments take on their own debt to build infrastructure, eventually somebody needs to actually buy the houses and businesses, usually with debt and mortgages. In the first generation of car-dependent suburbia, this private sector debt was minimal. But look at what happens as we get into the second and third generation of the suburban experiment. Here you can start to see how, instead of building on wealth that already exists in cities, America is financing its insolvent car-dependent sprawl by heavily indebting its citizens to fund that growth. But don't worry, after the 2008 financial crisis, everyone realized their mistake and it's all fine now. Of course, there's way more to this than just suburbia. The entire American economy is built on a dangerous dependence on debt and growth. But that's getting far beyond the topic of this video or even this YouTube channel. So let's get back to talking about cities. We need to reevaluate how cities are built.
He's better at turning back from tangents than we are.
Cities were built by many people making small bets, and as those places succeeded and generated wealth, they were upgraded and improved upon, building successful cities. But that means taking advantage of the infrastructure that already exists. Instead of constantly building out new public infrastructure, we need to densify the places that have already been created and build upon the wealth that's already there to make cities that can sustain themselves. Now, low-density suburbs and rural areas are fine too, but these places can't expect the same level of services that you'd find in a major city.
Which is fair.
In future videos in this series, we'll discuss which parts of cities operate at a loss and which parts keep them afloat, and how the poorest Americans are subsidizing wealthy suburbanites.
Also, of course, obviously.
First.
The opposite of what's reported.
I'd like to thank my supporters on Patreon who pay me to bore you with graphs. If you'd like to support
Thanks
the channel,
to Not Just Bike
videos,
supporters.
Visit patreon.com/notjustbike.
We appreciate you.
Very informative.
All right.
Man.
I like this channel. Like I said, it's been a while since I've actually taken a look at it, but I do like this channel, and I was like, oh right, I need to get back into Not Just Bikes. I should probably watch some of the other videos. I'm trying to
try and figure out the ones we were supposed to have as a prerequisite.
Yeah, you know what? I feel like I followed this well enough.
We went for 302 instead of taking all the other.
It's fine. We're gonna watch the fourth one in the series. It's fine. I think that we're okay. I think that we followed it well enough.
Yeah, especially because of the passion for these things. And this is also why I'm like super into people make fun of things like permaculture, but that's the solution to what's going on with the suburban sprawl and the suburban sprawl areas. If we can't afford to keep paying for that infrastructure for such low density, right?
Yeah.
So this is where things like these new underground fridges that we've built that are nice. I forget what they're called, but they're really great. You can get that fridge and it's less than paying for the electricity for a couple of years and everything that when it comes to like having more like they're like underground fridges that keep like within range all year round. Things like, there's newer septic tank design. So like the other issues we had with maintaining septic tanks don't exist, and it's more easy for like the average person to be able to do.
Oh, okay.
We really need people really need to grow their own food. Like we gotta quit poisoning our soil though. Like
yeah.
Right.
I mean,
if you're out there, I'm just trying to, because the grocery store thing, like, and also how much gas we spend getting grocery store, like product to suburban areas because they're so spread out.
Yeah. I mean, my mom used to try and grow tomatoes, and it sometimes worked and sometimes didn't. And it was just like, I mean, I can't even keep mint alive. So
there's always someone around you.
Not for me. I've got some plants, and it's like, but every time I try and and maybe if I kept the mint outside, maybe, but like trying to grow it inside, it just does not. It doesn't live. It doesn't like it.
And that's why some of us are city people. Like I'm a bit of a mixture. I'm a bit of a mixture. I'm definitely both. I can grow. I can do these certain things. I want like really crazy solar punk cities. I want all of us being able to walk where we need to go. I want
that would be great.
Fast public transportation. I want Chicago strangely is Amtrak's hub. If you watch all the lines come to here and come through here. But we need to have more sensors like that. We need faster trains. Because we need less air travel for domestic flights at least.
And we need we need more train travel in the way of like, we need the freight trains to be on their separate lines.
Yeah.
Like those cannot keep sharing the lines with Amtrak and with passenger trains. It's just
kind of ridiculous.
It's like, and also, we can talk about trains another time. It's just, oh my God. Like,
that's a huge problem.
That is a
solution.
Oh my God. Well, it's just like in general, it's like, the freight trains are too long and they're not staffed well enough. And it's just like, no, we need to like actively make them much shorter, much safer. Like stop. Everything's about capital. How much money can we make? How much money can we make? How much money can we make? And then, then we have things like what happened in Ohio, I think, right?
Oh, is that where the toppled over, right?
Yeah.
It was Ohio, yeah.
And it's just like, that's why that kind of thing, that's why it happened. So anyway, I could talk about that for a long time. And I have talked about that excessively. So those are, if you look in the backlogs of Hard Lens Media, you will find quite a few
train rants.
No, it's because Kit and I talked about it a lot on that show when we were both doing that together. So it's just like we had people like we did interviews with people from the area, and like there's a backlog of stuff when we were talking about that a lot. So if you want to find that, you can. I don't know where it is, but it's out there on the Hard Lens channel. Anyway.
Yeah.
I thought this video was interesting. I'd be very interested to continue watching more, not just bike stuff, especially now that I remember that it is a channel that I can watch.
And it was pretty amazing. So
good. I'm glad you
and informative.
Liked it.
Yeah, a lot.
Huzzah. I like it when I find a thing that works for you.
Yeah, and it just presents so well.
Yeah, he's very informative and very calm, and like I like listening to his voice.
Right, impassioned me, which is great because I always get over here getting upset, but like he's so calm that I'm just like, all right, I'm not gonna react. I can be
calm. And we have talked quite a long time at this point, so we're gonna be done for now. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.